want to make super clear to everybody, I am so excited to turn 30. I am super excited about this new decade, all the possibilities ahead. I'm actually going to talk about one of the lessons in looking at the world from a place of possibility and how to really develop that mindset. The whole point of this is to realize that every year and every decade, as we continue to have life experiences and events happen to us, if we can choose to find the lesson in them or think about how we've grown from them, whether they were good, whether they were bad, that's what it's all about.
Let's link up with Krysta on the FYX. She's a wellness coach with a focus on mental well-being and physical strength.
Hello, FYX listeners. Welcome back to our latest episode of the FYX podcast. I'm your host, Krysta Huber. And if you've been here for the last 3 weeks, I haven't turned 30 yet. So we are not done with our list of 30 lessons that I'm walking you through that I've learned over the course of my 20s as I'm about to hit 30. And I was having a really interesting conversation in my DMs just the other day with a client who was saying that she's closer to 60. And she was like, your 30s aren't that bad. And I realized I want to make super clear to everybody, I am so excited to turn 30. I am super excited about this new decade, all the possibilities ahead. I'm actually going to talk about one of the lessons in looking at the world from a place of possibility and how to really develop that mindset. So I said to her, oh my gosh, I really hope that I'm not making it sound like I'm not looking forward to turning 30, because I do really believe it all comes down to how you see yourself, how you look at your past, how you look at opportunities for growth. And I've started to see, and obviously it could just be the bias of my Instagram algorithm and me talking about this so much over the course of the last 2+ weeks at this point, but a lot of fun reels about how your 30s are so much better than your 20s in a lot of ways. And I'll just go so far as to say, the whole point of this is to realize that every year and every decade, as we continue to have life experiences and events happen to us, if we can choose to find the lesson in them or think about how we've grown from them, whether they were good, whether they were bad, that's what it's all about. And that's not one of the lessons I plan on sharing today. So we'll just call that one a bonus. But if you're new here and you're like, what is she talking about? First of all, welcome to the FYX. I'm so excited to have you as a brand new listener. If you're a returning listener, I love you guys too. But I've been going through this series over on Instagram, having so much fun with it and really enjoying using these podcast episodes every single week as my way to think through, okay, what are the next 7 lessons that I'm going to share? Because obviously I pre-record these and I record them usually over the weekend leading up to the upcoming week when I'm building up my content and everything. And so anyways, it's just been really nice to like take this time to reflect on a lot of these quick snippets that I'm sharing in a 20 to 60 second Instagram story, and then use this to expand on a little bit further. So we're going to keep rolling with it for 2 more episodes because I got to take you guys all the way into the month of May. And if you did tune in last week, you know that we are officially live with our brand new mini program called 30 Days to Thriving. Signups are open. We already have a few people who have enrolled. We officially kick off on May 6th. So I left plenty of time for you to make the decision to join this program. And again, as I mentioned last week, if you have ever thought about coaching and want to get even just a little taste of what it's like, this is such a perfect opportunity for you to enroll, because I'm also bringing you the best of the best coaches in all different facets of your health and wellness. People that I work directly with who have had such a benefit on my own fitness journey, on my own mental well-being, that I feel really strongly about making sure that we continue to stay committed to this holistic approach, because part of your overall wellness and part of what I have found to be the secret sauce, let's call it, when it comes to our fitness and nutrition, is actually looking at what the hell is going on in your day-to-day and how you feel and what might be blocking you from showing up as the person you want to be. It's an identity shift. When you are the person who wants to lose the weight, it is deep. There's certain things in life where we might be like, okay, it's not that deep. But when it comes to our confidence, when it comes to how we see ourselves, when it comes to what we think when we look in the mirror, it's actually crazy to me that today, in the world that we live in, with the access to information that we have, with the amount of crazy opinions that are kind of going on online, so many of which contradict each other, that more people are not talking about the fact that this isn't just about being like, hey, go eat this, have some protein, and let's call it a day. If it were that simple, there wouldn't be so many different types of coaches out there. So, all that said, we're going to get into our next 7 lessons. And throughout these, I'd love for you to think about the fact that this is the type of conversations we have with Fitness Fix clients. Through those of you who are clients, you know this, when we're talking one-on-one, when we are coaching. So if you've ever wondered, like, well, what is the coaching experience actually like? Some of these things that I'm sharing here, a lot of which I've shared in other social media posts, come through every single day when we're messaging back and forth. And that is what you can expect when you enroll in our 30 Days to Thriving program, in addition to some really fun weekly Zoom sessions that we'll be having with our guest coaches, talking about mobility, fitting that into your day, making sure you're having the proper structure for your warm-ups, recovery to get more out of your workouts if you're a super busy person, and talking about your relationships with yourself, doing the work of really figuring out like how to dig deeper on some of this whole identity conversation that I was just talking about. As I've shared over the course of the last few months, a couple episodes in January, I focused on this quite a bit. Just really having the space to have a conversation with a coach who's asked me to dig a little bit deeper about how I see myself, how I talk to myself, has so significantly impacted the way that we are coaching inside of the Fitness Fix program that I really thought it was a no-brainer to also bring him into the mix for this. So again, you're really getting the full experience within 30 days. And my number one priority, our team's number one priority, is to be able to show you that you can change how you feel in as little as 2 weeks. And that's our end goal. If you walk away from it and you're like, yeah, I actually am starting to feel like I'm making these deposits and showing up a little bit differently every single day, amazing, huge success. And then the idea of losing some body fat, maybe losing a few pounds, that's just kind of like the cherry on top, because I know 99% of you out there, I hear this in my DMs. I hear this conversation with clients regularly. You know, yes, you would love to lose a little bit more weight, but I know that most of you guys have deeper meaning to why you're doing this, to why you're taking the time to listen to the show every single week. There's more to it for you. And I love being able to connect with people like that. So check out the link in the show notes. Everything you need to know about what's included in the challenge, all that sort of stuff is listed there for you. And if you have any questions about it, my DMs are open. So now that I've said it twice already, let's actually get into our list for this week. So first up, I shared this one over the weekend. There was a lot of confirmation on Instagram that I am not alone in this statement, but Diet Coke is just elite. Okay. The people out there who are still trying to make a smear campaign against Diet Coke, I have a bone to pick with you, because there's actually a lot of valid research stating that diet sodas, leave the whole conversation about aspartame, sugar, all of that out of it, when it comes to specifically trying to lose body fat and look at your habits and behaviors, is a very helpful tool, because a lot of people will consume it over something like alcohol. So the fact that it's still widely accepted for us to drink alcohol, but people want to have an issue with Diet Coke, blows my mind. Love Diet Coke. My friend who encouraged me to share this one, shout out to my girl, Erin, who's also a client of ours inside of the Fix. She said, please specify with the world that McDonald's Diet Coke in particular is just the absolute best. I also had like 3 more people in my DMs mention that during pregnancy, they specifically craved Diet Coke. So I thought that was fun. So if you're ever like, what can I have to drink? I actually even have a Diet Coke literally sitting next to me right now. Felt that was fitting since it was the first one on the list for these next 7. So have at it. Number 2. This one gets into what I was just saying a few moments ago. So I'll elaborate on a little bit further about being able to see noticeable change in how you feel in your state in a very short time. And that's this idea of it doesn't take a whole lot to feel good. And I mean, finding the little things that make you feel good about yourself. For my ladies out there, I'm talking, you guys know what it's like. Hair wash day, the whole trend that's kind of going around. Like when you say you take like a full, you have to do an everything shower. That's what it's called. I was going to say full body shower. It's an everything shower. That's when we get the hair wash in there. If you're a guy listening to this and you're like, I don't get it, don't worry. This part's really not for you, I guess. But what I'm trying to say is making small decisions of doing your hair, putting on a dress that you feel really good in. If you're somebody who, like myself, is wearing athleisure, literally like your uniform 24/7, there is something to be said for those little small adjustments in you waking up in the morning, things like even making your bed, the feeling of getting into bed after you just put some fresh, clean sheets on it. Those are all things that make us feel good. Getting outside for 10 minutes and going for a walk if you've been glued to your computer. Those are really small decisions. They don't take a ton of effort, but yet they totally change our state almost instantly. And that's exactly what 30 Days to Thriving is all about. So I'm going to harp on this a lot up until we start the program and probably all the way into June too and beyond because I care about it so much. But it's just nice to remind yourself that if you're feeling like kind of blah and you're having one of those days where you're like, you feel a little bit off, there are very small decisions you can make to just change that feeling within an instant. But at the same time, it's also okay to feel your feelings. But if you notice yourself getting stuck, take this from somebody who's been in that mode of feeling really stuck for a very long time and unable to figure out a way to kind of get herself out of it. I now today have such an appreciation for what I would call these little things, kind of like what I was talking about a week or two ago in referencing buying yourself the flowers. It's just those romanticizing those smaller moments. Next one. This one is for all my busy people out there who go on TikTok and go on Instagram and see these 15-step recipes with 72 ingredients and somebody in their perfect kitchen in this perfect outfit making this meal that you're like, well, I don't have time for that. Guess what? You do not need to be a gourmet chef to nourish your body and make dishes that you look forward to eating and know are also going to support whatever goals that you might have, losing body fat, building muscle, getting more lean and toned. If you are not in my broadcast channel on Instagram, that is all I talk about in there. Quick, easy, fast recipes that require nothing but an air fryer. So get yourself in there. A couple of you have mentioned to me you don't have the feature on your Instagram yet to actually be in a broadcast channel. So you might not have even seen one yet, but when you do get it, join it because I just spam that thing with recipes that take me less than 10 minutes and half the time are not even involving the stove, unless of course it's me making eggs, which I do literally every day. But let go of this idea that the only way to be able to eat healthier meals is if you have tons of time. We can get creative in the kitchen, and I'm all about it because, like you, I'm busy too. So release some of that pressure on yourself and watch what happens when you realize that there doesn't have to be so many rules about how you do things based on other people's standards. If you want to make something work when it comes to seeing results, you will make it work. If you're in that thought process of like, well, I just don't have the time and I don't know how to make it happen, please come talk to me because that's what we're all about. Okay. Keeping with the food theme, keeping with the dieting theme, this is something I actually wish I learned sooner. So I would say I learned this lesson around like 26, 27. And I wish I had learned this lesson when I was like 21 or 22, first starting on my own journey of really understanding nutrition, actually looking at what's on my plate and everything that I now know about macros. And that's this idea of learning how to both diet, which I learned very well at that time, but also learning how to not diet. And one of my favorite mottos that's come out of this experience of me actually gaining a bunch of weight and realizing that my original approach to macros although I'm still a macros focused coach, the way I think about it now is so different than the way I learned it back when I was 22. And that's because I was always tracking my food for the sake of losing body fat and looking for results versus learning how to track it for the sake of maintaining those results. And the mantra that's come out of that for me that I say to clients all the time is how you get there is how you stay there. And that is so important because if the method of how you're getting there, in my case, I was getting to a point where I was just so focused on tracking every little thing that I actually didn't learn how to live in the gray area a little bit. And that's now something that we have made a massive foundation inside of the Fitness Fix, is actually encouraging clients to go out to eat, to get comfortable with the idea that no, you cannot track this meal perfectly, but hey, if we can focus on the other 20 plus meals that we're having throughout the week and you're really consistent with those, get out there, have yourself a good time, and realize that eventually we are going to teach you how to take the training wheels off when it comes to tracking. And the quote unquote mistake that I felt that I made when I was first learning how to track my food was I just developed this thought process of like, when I'm not tracking, I'm going to go back to the behaviors I had before and just kind of eat what I wanted to. And when I am tracking, that's when it counts. I'm putting that in quotes for everybody who's listening to this audio, versus understanding that if I learned how to log my food from a place of abundance, from a place of what I could add to my plate, from a place of seeing, well, just how high can I push my calories to maintain my physique, I could have gotten even more out of it, especially my relationship with food, continuing to improve my relationship with food, and really appreciating the fact that this didn't always have to be this like 1,400 calorie chase. Because look, for as much as people want to bash the 1,200 calorie diets and say like, oh, that's like not enough food for anybody, there are some people out there, if you're just an objectively smaller person, that may be a deficit for you. It's not that many people, but it is a possibility. And sometimes that does look like 1,500 calories, but it shouldn't be for an extended period of time. And it also shouldn't be something where you spend 12 plus weeks eating 1,500 calories and all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm done. It's like, well, what are you done with? Like, you could be done with your diet, but you're not done eating. You're going to eat every day forever for the rest of your life, right? You have to be here. So really learning and appreciating the fact that how you get there is how you stay there is something that I wish I had put more thought into when I first started working with a nutrition coach like 8+ years ago, to be able to just ask them different questions and talk to them more about like, what does this process look like for me once I finish this window of my 12-ish week calorie deficit? Like, where do I go next from here? How do I actually work my calories back up? So that's kind of a non-negotiable. I shouldn't say kind of, it is a non-negotiable now inside of the Fix, that if anyone's working with us, we are building in time to take you out of that calorie deficit, because we want you to be able to see this as something that you can do without us. A good coach wants to empower their clients. A good coach actually wants to get fired. Like, that is my end goal at the end of the day. And if someone's coming back to me, it's maybe because they've had a life event, some kind of change. They're going through some sort of transition and they know the value of the accountability. And so they want to bring it back into their life. Okay. Let's talk about selfishness and people pleasing, taking this one in a little bit of a different direction, more on the mindset side of things. This is something I've been thinking about for a long time, probably because my fitness career really started working with moms, and in particular new moms and moms who had very small children, and just hearing firsthand from them their challenges around balancing taking care of their kids and taking care of themselves. And this is a big narrative on social media for sure. Talked about it in my recent episode that I did with my friend Adam when we were talking about parenting and how your fitness schedule and routine adjusts. But selfishness needs a rebrand. And we're going to look at selfishness. We are going to redefine it as putting yourself first. I am really tired of this talk track that, oh, to be the best mom, you have to put everybody else's needs before your own. Like that makes you a better mom. And it's like, does it really? Like if we just take a second and actually unpack that statement, how is that true? And I've said this on this podcast many times, probably more times than I can count. And I'll put it in the same category of this sentiment of feeling good, of not shutting up about the importance of just feeling good. Because this thought of like, I need to put everybody else's needs before my own, it's a pattern that you hold on to in so many other areas of your life, even if you don't have kids. It can happen to you professionally too, and feeling like, oh, the only way that I'm going to get what I want in terms of getting promoted and building myself up at work, or even in building your own business, is to just keep going and going and going to the point where you're not prioritizing your needs. That is a fast track to feeling burnt out, to feeling resentment, to decisions that you've made, to a path that you chose. And it's just not fair to you, but also more importantly, it doesn't really make sense. If you're not taking care of yourself, how could you possibly show up as your best self for all these other people that you're saying you want to be the best for, right? So that's kind of like a little check for anybody out there who is at a moment in their life where they may be asking themselves, hey, I don't really feel that great. I can't exactly put my finger on to why I don't really feel that great. If you're telling yourself, well, like I should feel better, take a little inventory of that. Like, how are you talking to yourself about the way you show up for other people? Are you doing that in a way that's always putting you at the bottom of your list? Because that's just not it. And to that same end, when you're taking inventory of the way you see these things, I also want you to take a little inventory of how you talk to yourself. And that's my next lesson. This one's a two-parter. First, the way you talk to yourself matters so much. And second, I heard this on a podcast recently, and I think it's so powerful. You don't have to believe every thought in your head. You probably shouldn't believe every thought in your head, because if you really take note of how you talk to yourself and you really take inventory of the thoughts you have throughout the day and tune into them, you may start to notice that a lot of them are negative. And a way to reframe this is to think like, would I talk to a friend the same way that I'm talking to myself right now? And chances are the answer is usually no. We are our own worst critics. But your language is so important, and the way that you frame things and the word choice that you use is so important. But so many of us are constantly on the go and always looking at the gap instead of looking at the things that went right, that it is pretty easy for us to slip into that pattern of like, oh, this didn't go well. This doesn't look good. That's not what I wanted for this. Like just getting to the end of the day and looking at your to-do list and adding more and more things to it versus saying to yourself, oh, wait, I actually got a whole lot done. So when you do have a thought that maybe isn't serving you, stop yourself. We have like 80,000 thoughts or something crazy per day. Can you just reframe a couple of them? Start with something like when you're getting dressed in the morning and you're putting on an outfit. Do you ever actually say to yourself, oh, I look good in this? Or you're like, this could look a little better. Or I don't really like how that looks. And then you go and change like 3 times. Something to sit with too. And for my last one for this week, to close out the episode, I've been thinking about this for the last few days because Taylor Swift released a new album and it was all everyone talked about for all of last weekend. Along with her, I'm not going to say friend, but along with Kim Kardashian, there's a little controversy around it. And I was thinking about these two women, thinking about the absolute empires that both of them have created. And while I won't call myself a particular fan of either of them, I realized that they are both such good reminders of the following. there is a world of endless possibility out there for you when you truly give zero fucks about what other people think. And I have to give a shout out to Mark Manson for coining that idea, creating a whole podcast, a book around it, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. But when you think about women like that, Taylor Swift being one who will go and air her dirty laundry out, as I said in my post on this last weekend, in the form of 30 plus songs about various relationships she was in. Kim Kardashian deciding that she wanted to go be a lawyer, just out of nowhere. One day I woke up and thought that that was what she wanted to do, and not caring what other people think. Look at what they've been able to build. And whatever your opinions are on fame and celebrity, even those two celebrities in particular, put that aside for a second and ask yourself, are you, based on the thoughts you have in your head, based on those stories that you're telling yourself, what are you limiting yourself from doing? And look at women like that as a reminder of like, you can do just about anything. You really can. If you go for it, if you put in the effort, you literally can't fail unless you choose not to go for it all. Like, to me, that's the definition of failing, of not recognizing that there will be failures along the way. This is not to say that you need to pursue everything and keep going and going and force something to work. Like, we shouldn't force things to work if they're just simply not working. But do you really want to live a life of thinking, what if I had done this thing, quit that job, moved to this other city, said yes to something, maybe even like really small too, whether it was just like you passing up a dinner with a friend. Being able to have this mindset of abundance and this appreciation for the fact that some of your best days haven't even happened yet comes with putting yourself out there and trying different things and going for it, and recognizing that failure is a part of the process and it's a good part of the process, and it's okay to expect it. But the true definition of failing would be if you were sitting there doing nothing, wishing you did the thing, and just constantly thinking about the thing. Like, go for it. Put yourself out there. So that's the list for this week. I got one more coming your way next week. 7 more things to share. And one more plug for 30 Days to Thriving. Because again, it really doesn't take a whole lot to feel good. And my question that I'll leave you with is, think about where you were this time last year. And if we think about people usually using Memorial Day as the barometer for summer and saying, oh, I want to get to feeling a little bit more confident in my bathing suit this summer. I want to be looking forward to trips and travel and all these different things. And every January, you're the person who says, oh, I'll start this year. Now you fast forwarded to April, almost May, and you're like, oh, shoot, I said that. Now here I am. You got all the time in the world. But you're keeping yourself stuck if you keep saying, oh, like, here I am again this year. I said this year was going to be different. Stop thinking in really long intervals and start thinking in like, hey, how cool would it be if I just took a chance on something for 30 days and see if I felt even 2% better? Like, what do you have to lose from that? Literally nothing, other than maybe a little bit of weight, which is what you want anyways. So why not? As always, from wherever you're listening from, I appreciate every single one of you for tuning in. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you guys next week.